Honestly, I think you need to define what is your version of success. If they're calling you for an interview, they already like your CV. That means your CV is approved. But nobody's going to set deadlines for you. Nobody's going to tell you, okay, this is when you get promoted. Okay, this is when you go for your master's. Okay, this is when you...
Greetings, listeners. Welcome to Eminence, a podcast series by Evolve, the Personality Development Society of Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, University of Delhi. With this podcast, we aim to provide a platform to our experts and industry specialists to share their wisdom and experience with our audience. Uh, I am Tushar Goenka, and I will be your host for this episode. Today, we have a very special guest with us, uh, Miss Mehar Sindhu Batra. She is a chartered accountant. She holds an MBA degree. She is a content creator, and nonetheless, she's also a social media influencer. Ma'am, I have seen your reels in my feed, but for those who haven't, could you please give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tushar, for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here talking to you. I think you introduced me well enough, but I will just add one thing is that my career journey was supposed to go very linear and very normal, and then I decided to take a different kind of turn. It was just to help young professionals like you get ahead in their careers, level up their careers through my own successes and failures. So anybody needs any kind of career tips, always come onto my Instagram, YouTube channel, or LinkedIn profile. I'll share all tips and tricks with you to help you accelerate your career.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, one thing that I'd like to begin with is when I was going through your profile, like I have seen you in my feed. So when I saw that you have such a strong educational background, like you are a CA, you have an MBA degree, and you worked with some of the biggest MNCs, which are the dream jobs of many commerce aspirants. And you took a very risky change of direction in your career path towards a relatively newer field of content creation, which I believe has sprung up only in the last 2 or 3 years, or in a way during and post pandemic. Ma'am, I'm sure that journey was full of challenges or its own milestones. Can I say that? Uh, would you mind sharing your journey with us?
Yeah, sure, sure. Tushar, when I was starting the page and when I was just making my first video, the idea was never to be a content creator or an influencer. It was just to share with students, people who were just 5, 6 years behind me, and just share my tips and tricks and my successes, my failures, my challenges, my triumphs with them. So I literally made my first video with my full-time job. So I was working as a strategy/management consultant in London at the time, and I had some extra time in the evenings and on weekends. So I was like, chalo, let me, make some videos to help people. And that's how it started. And I think for me, it was never that, okay, this is going to be my career path. It was just something that I did out of fun. It was just something that I did out of my love to help people. And it wasn't with the agenda of making a lot of money or having, a big business one day. It was never like that. It was always just, okay, I have some time. I want to help people. Let me make a video. And I've always loved social media. So for me, it just came naturally to use social media as a platform. For during the pandemic, what worked in my favor was because everybody was working from home. So I started my YouTube channel in 2019 and everybody was home. I had extra time. I wasn't traveling anymore. So then that time I could dedicate more time to, develop, uh, like give more talks. I did so many free workshops. I did one-on-one coaching for my students. And yeah, I think the pandemic really, really helped me. So I think anybody who wants to become a social media creator, I would always say that please try it first and, do it as a side hustle because it comes with its own challenges. As you said, there have been different types of milestones. So for me, it wasn't like, okay, let me be an influencer today. It was never like that. It was a journey that I went on for 2.5 years and then I quit my job. I managed like 2 full-time jobs for 2.5 years. And then when I decided that, this is something, I can make something big out of it and I want to reach more people, it needs more full-time attention from my end. It just became an obsession. That's when I decided to quit my job.
Ma'am, that sounds like a hell of a journey. Uh,
Yeah.
Ma'am, I believe that the Indian mentality, I'm speaking on a very general way from a student's perspective, revolves around sticking to more safer options in life. Like you had a very secure job and you still went on to explore a field of your interest. Many of the students don't have the ability, they have the ability to do that, but they don't have the confidence. Either it's the family pressure that stops them or into taking these risks in their lives. So what is your advice for those students to just go ahead with it?
So I think that depends on personal circumstances, right? A lot of people have financial responsibilities. A lot of people have other kind of um, circumstances that they need to be in a full-time stable income position. I had also been in that position, but I also thought that, I don't want to be 40 one day and regret not trying something that I really want to try. And also, like I said, I was in that stage in my life and in my career that I didn't have any responsibilities. I didn't have any financial obligations. So I think it's very important to plan what's right for you, because somebody's quitting their job to be an entrepreneur doesn't mean that that's the path and that's what you should do as well. So you need to assess, okay, how much do I need per month? How much should I be making per month for this business idea to work? And also how much investment will it need from my end? So I would say that make a list of expenses, investment that you have per month for the business. And if you do want to do something unconventional, you'll have to rough it out for a little bit, right? Like you won't be able to pay yourself a salary for a bit. You'll have to test the market. And that's why I think it's important, if you're trying to launch something, instead of going 100% full on into it, if you need a stable job, do that and also build something else on the side. Your generation is all about hustling and doing multiple things anyway. So I would say really, really try and do that. And also, like, your family will support you if they see that you've put in the hard work for a year or so, and it's something that you're really passionate about. So my family saw that I've worked really hard at this idea for more than 1.5 years. That's when I had the conversation about quitting. And when I did decide to quit, I started saving up. I saved a portion of my salary so that in case something goes wrong, I have that emergency fund with me. So I think just plan very well. Don't take the jump. And they say that, your 1 year side hustle starts making more than your full-time job, that's when you should quit. I don't think that's right. I think if you can see that some kind of substantial income is coming from there and you can't stop thinking about it, and you know that you need to do it full time for it to get to that level, then that's also fine. But yes, it shouldn't be that you're making zero and you're like, I'll just quit my job.
So risk evaluation is necessary
I
before
feel
taking
so.
these risks.
I feel so. Yeah.
Okay, so ma'am, moving on. As you would be aware, it's the placement season which is hovering over the DU circuit right now. It's the
Mm,
placement season that is up. Uh, so what I believe, and I say this on behalf of many of the traditional Indian students, is that the education system we follow is based more upon academics. The emphasis is more on the scores in your exams and
yeah.
not on the overall holistic development of a student.
Mm.
Whereas the recruiters who we are technically preparing for are not focusing on just academics, and they want a bunch of stuff they expect from an applicant. So, ma'am, according to you and with your experience, what are the some key aspects of a character or personality traits that a student must possess in order to crack these interviews or to leave a good impression, or even get a reputa- uh, or even get an admission in a reputable institute which is top ranked globally?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Firstly, all the best to anyone sitting for placements right now. I hope it goes well. I think I completely agree with you, is that there is a gap between the education system, not just in India, I feel many parts of the world, and what the job market really wants, right? So there is that gap. And if you notice, the people who end up getting the jobs are the ones normally who are not maybe the most qualified in the room. They're the ones who can speak about their qualifications with confidence and communicate properly. So that's the gap that you need to fill by yourself, because a recruiter, if they're calling you for an interview, they already like your CV. That means your CV is approved. but they're going to see who are you as a person. So they're going to test your confidence, your communication sense, your communication style, the way you conduct yourself, how well you've researched about the company, etc. So I would just say a couple of skills that you can start building is your communication, literally like observing how other people talk if you're not comfortable, and starting to speak more clearly, more proficiently, looking at yourself in the mirror and, doing some power poses, verbal, non-verbal communication, equally important. And also before every interview, it's important that you do absolutely a lot of research about the company, about the job role, because recruiters can see the passion. As a fresher, they're not expecting you to know everything going on in the world or everything going on in the industry. They're going to hire you at the lowest level, right? So they're expecting you to be a learner. They're expecting you to be passionate, to have energy. So those are the things that you need to demonstrate as a fresher, instead of thinking, oh shit, I don't know about this industry. You don't need to know A to Z everything. You just need to know the basics. But yes, if you show extra knowledge in the interview, then people like that. It shows to them that, okay, this person knows what's going on in big data or generative AI, etc. And that's why I need to call them in, because they have good knowledge and they are interested and they are passionate. So that's exactly what you need to do. So I would say communication skills, and the more you communicate, the more confident you'll get. And doing research about the company, super important. And of course, like paying attention to your non-verbal communication also, how you present yourself. Like I will say one thing, you may be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't communicate that, nobody's going to come and do that for you, right? They're not going to remember. They won't even know that you have 10 degrees or you've done all this amazing stuff if you don't talk about it. So you have to be your biggest advocate. You have to be your biggest cheerleader in that interview and otherwise also, always.
Ma'am, that was a very deep statement that that requires a lot of thought from our part. Ma'am, how important is the dressing sense when you are presenting to someone? How, like, what kind of impression does it create on the person who is recruiting you or who is interviewing you?
Honestly, I think, unfortunately, that's human judgment, that we look at somebody and they say, when you see somebody, you make a first impression about them without them opening their mouth in the first 7 seconds, right? So if you meet someone and you think, let's say you go to a party and you meet somebody and you look at them and you can instantly, your brain can know, yeah, whether this person can be your friend or not, right? So similarly for recruiters, and just humans in general, that's how human psychology works, is that we will make an impression. We are leaving an impression on anyone and everyone we meet, right? So why not take the interview a little seriously? Why not come up and show up as a professional who looks to be a part of this organization? Now, maybe you're going to join a tech startup where they're chill about, you wearing shorts and sneakers. That's fine. Then I would still say that for the interview, look professional, look sharp, because it's an interview. It's a professional conversation at the end of the day. You're not going for a friend's birthday party, right? So just make sure you're presenting yourself in a more professional manner, that you're serious about getting this job, that you're going to make a mark, that you're going to help the organization. So even if it's not a tie, at least wear a shirt, wear a nice blazer, polished shoes, all of these things matter, because the recruiter's like, okay, this person has taken the interview seriously. This person knows what the dress code of our organization is, so these are the little things. I know Gen Z is all about sneakers and wearing athleisure, but I would still say, please, make a little bit of effort. It will go a long way.
Travel the extra mile.
Yes, if you can. Please do.
Ma'am, at our society, when we were recruiting, most of the members that were wanting to join us had one common problem, which was public speaking. They were afraid of public speaking and were underconfident. You are a social media influencer. You face the camera every day, and you know the masses you are reaching out to on a daily basis. Were you like this since the beginning? Like you were born confident, or again, it was a journey? It had its share of setbacks and low points.
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, like if I tell my parents always say that in my childhood, I was very confident. I was very, very lively, and I would always bring people together and always wanted to talk to people. But I think in my teenage years, my confidence really went down. Like I was very much full of self-doubt. Even though I did well in school, I wasn't comfortable being myself. Even when I started working, I would never speak up in a team meeting. I was just so shy to share my opinion, express my opinion. I think it all comes down to the environment that you're in. So if you're bullied in school, or if your seniors are toxic, you just start doubting yourself. So I was always in those situations. I think for me, when I started doing something that I really loved, so my last job in London, last 1 year working there, I started speaking up a little bit more, only because probably I'd started my YouTube channel and I started speaking more frequently. The first interview like this for me I was nervous. I was probably, if you watch the video, I was probably not as proficient as I am now. So I think public speaking is not a skill that everybody's born with. I definitely wasn't. And a lot of public speakers say that themselves, is that with practice, you get better. It's like driving a car or biking, or just going for a run. First time you do it won't be a 10 on 10, but the 10th time you do it, or the 20th time you do it, you'll be better at it. That's why it's important to expose yourself and put yourself in uncomfortable positions where you're made to speak up. So let's say you have a big family dinner going on, 20-25 people. Just say you're going to give a speech. Apne log hain, nothing will happen. So I would just say that that's how you start practicing with people you're close to. Or it could be that you give a presentation in your classroom, or you take up an opportunity like you have right now, where you're speaking to so many different types of people. And that's the kind of homework you do, so that you build that muscle of putting yourself out there and becoming more confident, becoming more sure. The first time you say something, it won't be good. But again, if you give the 10th speech, or the 10th time you do it, it'll be much better. And that's how you need to expose yourself, so that by the time you start working, you have that confidence to deal with clients, to present in meetings, to be around a boss who's maybe, way more knowledgeable than you. So it'll just help you a little bit more. Public speaking and just communication in general, I feel, is a very underrated skill in our education system that we need to expose ourselves to more. So school's probably not going to help you as much. You need to put yourself in those uncomfortable positions yourself.
I totally agree with that, ma'am. I totally agree. Ma'am, one more thing. Since you are a DU alumni yourself, you must be aware that most of the students that come to DU are migrants from around the country. They come from different states, from tier 2, tier 3 cities. And it's a challenge for them to adjust to a city like Delhi in the first place. And when I take this to an international level, when a student goes to a different country, in my opinion, that challenge increases at least tenfold, because there is a cultural barrier, there is the difference in the basic beliefs that people hold in the society. And you have traveled that journey as well. So, ma'am, were there certain areas or certain times when you felt like underconfident, or you felt like an outcast, or somehow felt different and not fitting in the society?
Yeah, definitely. I did. There were many times when I was working here in London and I was the only brown person in the room. And many times I was presenting to these 50-year-old white men and I was the only lady in the room. Right. So I think, like I said, that stage of my career, I was full of self-doubt. So I was like, what the hell am I doing here? Why am I here? I think in that moment, you just have to remind yourself that you're in the room for a reason, right? You're in that college for a reason. You got selected. You got that job on your capabilities, on your qualifications. You deserve to be there. So what happened with me is that I went on a self-love journey. So when I started falling in love with myself and started understanding, everybody's unique. My story is unique. I'm sitting in this room different from everybody else because I have probably worked harder to get here than they have, right? That's what you have to think. Like if you're from a tier 2 city, especially moving to a tier 1 city, your journey is more unique than somebody who's been in their comfort zone, living in 1 mile radius of the university, right? Your journey is unique. So I would just say that when I started owning where I'm from, my roots, owning my story, I was able to be more confident. So then I started connecting with my clients and my colleagues on a personal level, that I would say, I'm from India and this is the journey I've been on, and this is the food we eat, and this is the festival we have, and That's when people are also curious to learn more about your story and connecting with you on a personal level. So I think any time in your life, in your career, you will be in situations when you are the odd one out, right? When there is something unique that you have that other people don't. So instead of feeling shy about it or feeling like the sore thumb or the odd man out, I would say that embrace where you're coming from, and talk about it with confidence.
Ma'am, failure is considered to be a very taboo topic among the students these days. Like in a situation, if 4 out of 5 times a student is validated and is accepted for the position or whatever he has applied for, and that one time he is rejected, we often tend to overlook the 4 acceptances and let that one rejection settle in our minds. So, and failure is something that everyone has to face one time or the other. So how should we as students deal with this as constructive, and not term it as rejection, and make it a more positive, and look at it with a more positive outlook?
Yeah, that's an important question because we all take failure very personally. And that is because growing up, that's how we are raised, right? Get the best marks, do the best, etc. And when failure hits us, and when it hit me when I was doing my CA, I didn't handle it very well. I had never failed in my life, never ever. I was a good student all my life. So when I failed those exams, I took it as a personal attack on who I was. But now when I talk to my students, I tell them that, you are here and your failure is independent of you. Your failure is in your career or in your professional environment. It does not determine who you are as a person, because your life is not just your career. Your life is your relationships, your health. If you are a spiritual or religious person, it's the things you do outside of work for your recreation, etc. So work and profession is just one part of your life. So if you are not doing well in one part of your life, you can't call your overall score as a zero and a failure. So it's very, very important to separate failure from who you are as a person. Don't take it personally, because whoever you see is the most successful today has been through their own fair share of failures, right? We just glorify the successes more than the failures. But now I think the conversation is changing. People are talking a little bit more about their challenges and their failures. But I feel that if you're looking for a job and you're going through rejections, don't take it personally. But I would still say that learn from each failure. There are no failures, there's just lessons learned. So make a list of the things that you could have done better. Take it as personal feedback and constructive criticism. And even if at work you're getting a feedback from your boss, and that's how the human brain is wired. Unfortunately, we focus more on the negative than the positive, like you said. So if our boss says 8 good things about us and 2 improvement things, we'll just think about the improvement things. We'll be like, shit, I wish I would have done better. We'll always focus on those 2. Or if you were having a good day but one thing went wrong, you focus on that your entire day on that one thing that went wrong. So I would just say that you need to train your brain a little bit and fail forward. So something goes wrong, learn from it and become better at it, and then don't repeat that mistake. You're allowed to make mistakes, but don't make the same ones again and again.
Yes, ma'am. We at Evolve, we are based on the foundation that personality is something which is utterly underrated. And personality is an element which has to be present with each and every individual, irrespective of their field of study or their field of work. It has to be there in each and every domain of life. So to what extent do you agree with me when I say this?
You mean show a sense of your personality in everything you do? That's
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think exactly that. You are different from who I am and who Shrishti is and who all your classmates are, right? Even though you may have done the same degree, you may have the same qualifications, what you bring to the table is always going to be different. So that's your personality. Your personality is your beliefs, your values, the education that you have, the way you speak, the other outside college experiences that you've had, all of that you pool into this one thing. And that's unique to you. There's only one you. And that's why you need to add a little bit of your own personality, no matter what you do. So let's say you're on a project. And if you're on a project and you don't contribute your ideas, that's when you're holding yourself back from shining, right? Your opinion matters, your personality, your element has to be added for that project to be success. So that's why it's very important to showcase our true selves at work and in college and university every single day.
Ma'am, most of the self-help books that are in the market and are bestsellers, they stress on one important point, that we as individuals do not utilize even 5 or 10% of our true potential of our mind. Ma'am, according to you, what is the basic reason why we don't? Like, why am I not tapping into the full potential of my own well-being?
I think, again, our brain probably functions like that. We have to go into deep thought and be in flow mode. You know how they say you have to be in like that flow state to be able to do everything properly and to totally utilize more parts of our brain. I also think it comes down to how mentally strong you are, how deep you can go and thinking deeper level things. I also feel we are a little too distracted right now. You know, we want quick results. Abhi chahiye, abhi khatam karna hai. So that's because of that, like so much social media, so many things going on, so many distractions, so many options, so many choices for everything, that we are not able to give our 100% to something. So there may be Netflix on, but you may be doing something on your laptop. Simultaneously, your friend will call and then you'll, you know, talk to your friend as well. So we are doing 1,000 other things, that we have 1,000 tabs open on our browsers. And that's why probably we're not able to go deep on a subject. But that's exactly how creative people work, Tushar, is that when I come up with my best ideas is when I have nobody around me, or, you know, I don't have a device on me. It's when we are able to be alone, maybe with nature or taking a shower or reading a book, or you just being alone, is when you actually have those amazing ideas and amazing thoughts. And creative people do that. Like Steve Jobs used to do that. Bill Gates used to do that. You know, authors of big books, they shut themselves in cottages far away from the city without any devices, and that's when they write their book. So that's exactly when we are able to use more parts of our brain. So I would just say, if you're trying to come up with an idea, just disconnect from the world. So important to have disconnection also, you know, like digital detox. So I would just recommend having like 1 hour a day when you don't use any screens at all. You know, just spend some me time, maybe with friends, with family, whatever, alone also, but just don't have a device on you. Try that for 1.5 hours every day to do.
Yes, ma'am. As they say, most of the most ideas were like generated in the shower time and not
Yes.
on the test time. So
Yeah, definitely.
that's a plus point. Uh, Ma'am, you are on a self-awareness journey, as I have figured out until now. Ma'am, when you left India for your master's and till the present date, what are the key changes that you have witnessed about yourself being in a different environment?
It's such a good question. So many things, such a long journey. I think in India, I had always lived with my parents in their home. So I was just a little too comfortable there. You know, everything was taken care of. I was very pampered. So moving abroad, especially, really makes you grow up. Suddenly you're a grown up. You know, you have to take care of everything yourself, running a house, paying the bills, getting your own groceries, taking care of yourself when you're sick. And also adjusting, living in a different environment, a different culture. So I definitely think that I've become more independent. I've become more self-reliant. I don't get bored spending time alone anymore. You know, in India, we always have something going on. There's some festival, some relative coming over. Here, it's like, it's a little slower that way. I've also been able to expose myself to different cultures. You know, my thinking has become more diverse and inclusive, non-judgmental I've become, because people here are from all over the world. So being a little bit more sensitive to other people's journey and you know, how everybody's different. So I feel it's definitely made me a better person, professionally as well as personally, because the exposure level has been so immense for me.
So, ma'am, is it right to say that to accept others, first you need to accept yourself?
Definitely. Yeah, I love that quote. Yes.
And we should always like leave our comfort zone in order to grow.
Yes, yes. I think you should leave your comfort zone to grow, but you should never forget where you come from, right? You should always remember your roots. You should always remember and be respectful of the journey that you've been on and the people who have supported that journey. So, a lot of people move abroad and then they forget about their friends and family back home. So for me, that's not the case. I still remember the cheerleaders that I used to have back then, and they're still my closest people. So it's really important to, not completely look away. And that happens when you get successful as well. You may forget your first job, you may forget your first mentor, your first boss, but you must always be thankful and grateful for the people who helped you to get to the level that you're at today.
Ma'am, I would like to come back to your current like work, which is social media influencing. Uh, Ma'am, when you post something which is reaching a very wide audience, you will obviously get criticism and hate at times. There will be negative comments, and most of the people would just start doubting themselves and lose all their confidence after a certain point because of that hate that they get. How do you personally deal with that negativity?
Honestly, it was very difficult for me in the beginning. Um, I I didn't take it very well. So my team and my husband used to go and delete the negative comments so that I don't see it. But luckily, I'm in an industry where there's more positive than negative. Like I'm just sharing information and knowledge and helping people. So I would say I would probably get one negative comment out of 500 positive comments, right? So the ratio is very less, unless I post something controversial and people are against it, etc. But I feel that the love has been way more than the criticism. So for me, the love keeps me going. And if somebody's being very hurtful, I can always go and block them. But luckily, it's very less. Maybe once a year, somebody will say something hurtful. So I can manage that. It was difficult in the beginning. And I think every content creator will tell you that in the beginning, it's always difficult. But then you sort of develop this exterior, like a hard exterior, where even a praise doesn't affect you as much as it used to, and even a criticism doesn't affect you as much as it used to. So when someone says amazing things about me, I'm not like, oh, I'm the best in the world. I don't think like that. Similarly, if somebody says your stuff is shit, so I would just say that please stop watching it if you don't like it. You always have an option. So yeah, that's how I balance it.
I think that is a strategy that should be followed even for non-influencers, because even normal people get a lot of criticism. It's a good practice that we can all follow to maintain the healthy environment around us.
Definitely. Yeah. Shout out the negativity, right? Don't spend time with people who bring you down. Why are you spending time with that negative friend who always criticizes you or bullies you? Or why are you spending more time with a relative who just brings you down every time? So you need to surround yourself with people and choose the people, the top 5 to 10 people you spend the most of your time with. And they should be people who lift you up, not the ones that push you down. It's really important.
Ma'am, you went from a corporate job where you had to sit in an office. Now you are being called into big companies, you're giving BBC interviews. This is a massive transition of fields and career. How was it for you the first time you went into an interview and thought, ki, I started off in a different direction and here I'm sitting in BBC's office and recording a podcast there?
It's very surreal. It's really surreal because I didn't plan any of it. I always knew that I would help people. I always knew that I would give back in some way, but I never thought that it would be like this was the journey that I would follow. So I'm very humbled and grateful when these things happen, and I think there's no on and off switch. Okay, now your life is perfect. It's always a journey, and I have also been through as a content creator and as an entrepreneur, also ups and downs. And now that I'm at a place where I feel like, okay, I have done a little bit of stuff that's good. I just feel like, okay, this is just the beginning and I still have so much more to do. And I want to help more people. I want to create one more video about this topic. So, that's how I get sleepless nights, when I get a lot of ideas in my head. So I'm really humbled, and I'm only excited for the future, that it just fuels me to do more.
That's very enlightening, ma'am. Ma'am, what is your ultimate advice to the students that are yet to join the real competitive world in the near future, whether to start their own venture or pursue their higher studies or get a normal job, get their placements? It's a very competitive world from the way I see it. What's your ultimate advice to those students who get those sleepless nights, existential crises at times, and times when they cannot figure out what they have to do? Because DU is a place where it is filled with overachievers, and we often tend to compare ourselves with the person who is doing 4 professional courses at the same time. And you see yourself and you think that, what am I doing? This person is going to get the successful life he dreams of, and I won't. And that takes away the nights. So, do you have any advice that all students should follow for a more healthy approach?
So many things I want to say right now. Firstly, I think you need to define what is your version of success, right? Not everybody wants to be a billionaire. Not everybody wants a fancy house. Not everybody wants to work 15, 20 hours a day. So firstly, figure out, yeah, when will I feel successful? What kind of work do I want to do? What do I even want to do work? Like, do I want to maybe just travel the world, or be a teacher, or be an influencer, or be somebody who helps an NGO? So figure out what is success to you. Like, for example, an army officer's version of success is very different from a teacher's, or an investment banker's. So figure out what is success to you, and then after that, it wouldn't matter what anybody else is doing, because your version of success is different from what they think is success. So somebody doing 4 degrees, there's no guarantee that they'll be successful, in quotes, right? So don't do a degree just because somebody else is doing it. Do a degree because you want to do it. You're passionate about the subject. You're passionate about that field, about that course. My number one advice for anybody entering the real world now, as I would like to call it, is that it's going to be really different. Till school, till college, till university, your life is very structured. You know what you're working towards. You had your board exams, you had your college entrances, and after that, you knew you had semester exams, and now you have your placements. After this, there's no hand holding. After this, it's a blank canvas, right? Nobody's going to set deadlines for you. Nobody's going to tell you, okay, this is when you get promoted. Okay, this is when you go for your master's. Okay, this is when you start becoming an entrepreneur. You need to set those deadlines for yourself. You need to be working towards something. Now whatever your version of success is, figure that out, and then set targets for yourself, because then you'll feel very lost. So after I finished my MBA, I was done studying and I felt so lost. I was like, what am I working towards now? And that structure suddenly goes missing, and you don't know where your life is headed. That's why it's important to have a long-term career goal and then break that down into smaller steps. Okay, I want to do an MBA 5 years from now. What all do I need to do in the next 5 years? So you can get a job, you can do an external course, you can start a side hustle, you can do many other things to build your application, etc. But that way, at least you have some clarity. After you finish your studies, then also you should have a goal, because otherwise you'll be very lost. So I would just say that set yourself your own targets. Your parents were guiding you before, your teachers were guiding you, sometimes your colleagues and your classmates were guiding you. Now there's nobody, you're alone on your own. So please work towards something, and go with the dedication that, I'm on my own, but I'll be fine. And talk to as many people as you can, especially who are like 5-6 years ahead of you on the journey that you want to go on. So if you want to get into data analytics, find somebody in the data analytics field 5 years senior to you, and figure out how they did it. Talk to them, ask them questions, because that will give you some clarity. Okay, how do I get where they are? And that's really important as well, so that you can plan your life as well.
So we have to become our own Google Maps in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Ma'am, in the very beginning of the conversation, you mentioned that your journey towards self-love is the reason of your current trajectory. So, ma'am, if you don't mind, would you like to share a little about the realization of self-love and why you need that, and in a way focus on yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, in my teenage years, in my early 20s, I was very, I felt really bad when somebody judged me. You know, I was afraid of judgment. I was afraid to share my opinion because, oh my God, log kya kahenge, what will people think, all of that. Because now I have been through that journey of falling in love with myself and being okay having an opinion that's different from somebody else. I'm just my own best friend now. You know, like it's okay. Like if I think differently, there's a reason why I think differently. And if I'm wrong, also, I'm not going to be like, no, I'm right. Also, I'll go educate myself and then come up with an opinion. I also think that self-love comes when you're really doing something you really are passionate about and you really love. So if you're doing something you really love, you'll be able to talk about it with confidence. You'll be able to express yourself more freely. So I think you have to just remember the things you love about yourself and the qualities about yourself that, and I always tell my students that, you know, make a list of all your achievements, make a list of all the things you love about yourself and the things that you've done well at work, outside of work as well. And when you doubt yourself, just go back to that list. You know, just go back to that list, how much you've achieved, how far you've come. We were always comparing ourselves with people ahead of us, you know, but there are so many people who are behind us as well. And our journey is so unique only. So I would just say, try and get to be a better version of yourself every year, because like we talked about the comparison thing earlier, you'll do that comparison in your 20s also, in your 30s also, in your 40s also. Your friends will buy a bigger house, a car, they'll get promoted, they'll go to some university, etc. You know, so that will never end. But if you love yourself and if you have that clear goal and you're working towards that goal, you know that I'll be fine, yaar. I'm working towards something else. I'm working towards something bigger. I'm doing my best. And go back to that list that you love, all the things you love about yourself.
Ma'am, you told us that you are a hardcore book lover, and since you have done this journey on yourself as well, would you like to recommend an audiobook, a book, or a podcast series that our listeners can use to start their own self-love journeys, if you can recall one?
So many. Oh my God. I would say that I always tell everybody to read The Alchemist. It's a book that changed my life. So do read The Alchemist and read Robin Sharma's books. Robin Sharma's books are really nice. They're about gratitude, about planning well, planning your career, etc., being more organized. And one YouTube channel that is about self-love in particular is called Lavender. It's really nice. She makes beautiful videos about letting go of the past and focusing on becoming a better version of yourself. So yeah, those are my recommendations.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm sure most of our listeners would be going through these things just right now on their Amazons and everything. And I believe we have taken enough of your time, and it's a mark for us to end this episode. Uh, Thank you so much, ma'am, for agreeing to being a part of this podcast series that we have started. And to all the listeners, please go and visit ma'am's Instagram account, LinkedIn account, her YouTube channel. We will provide all the links in our comment section. And if you like this conversation, please just go smash a like on a video, drop a comment, share it with your friends. And don't forget, if you have any further questions that you would like to bring up in the future conversations, please drop down them below. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such a nice and peaceful conversation. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so this might be very controversial what I'm about to say,
Sure.
but when
Yes.
an introvert might also be very talented and very expert in that, important, because once you get into the race of jobs and building your career and then working